Welcome to Stanley, Scuba, Sailing, and Adventures. I'm Bill Stanley. This is my travel vlog. Scuba diving the British Virgin Islands, dive site The Indians, October 30th. The Indians dive site is located northwest of Norman Island. The minimum skill level recommended for this dive site is open water. The Indians dive site is made up of 4 rock pinnacles that project from a sandy bottom. Our dive plan was to enter from the mooring and swim south. We would keep the largest rock formations to our left. When we reached the southernmost pinnacle, we'd make our turn and begin to head north. As we returned north, we would keep the pinnacles to our right until we reached the mooring. The maximum depth for this dive site is about 55 feet, and I'm guessing that the rock pinnacles extend about 55 feet into the air. In the dive guidebook, the dive site is described as consisting of pinnacle walls, coral gardens, and interesting shallow pools. It is also described as being one of the best shallow reef dives in the BVI. The company I was traveling with had only been operating here in the British Virgin Islands for about 12 weeks. As a result, most of the crew was temporary, including most of the dive masters. This meant it was possibly the first time on some of these dive sites for our dive guides as well. I think we may have missed a few substantive features of this dive site from what I've read. From what I read, a circumnavigation is most typical when diving this site. Also, as you're moving north between the 3rd and 4th pinnacles, there's a canyon you can enter. Past the canyon, there's a cut that opens to the right. At the end of the cut, there is supposed to be a large cavern. Continuing east and southeast from there, there's supposed to be a second, lower cavern. And then a deep pool and a tunnel. The tunnel then empties into a large bowl in about 20 feet of water. You can exit the bowl to the south. If I'm able to return to this dive site, I hope to make it through the canyon and see the caverns. This dive schedule is atypical of what I'm used to. I'm used to diving each dive site at least twice. This dive started at about 11:15 and lasted just about 55 minutes. I recorded a maximum depth of 38 feet and an average depth of 21 feet. In regard to water temperature, I recorded a minimum temperature of 84 degrees Fahrenheit and a maximum water temperature of 87 degrees Fahrenheit. I would guess the visibility on this dive was somewhere close to 60 feet. There were a few clouds, and when the sun would break through, it'd really light things up. You can see here when the sun's coming out between the clouds. I was underwhelmed by the amount of sea life on this particular dive site. However, I did find the terrain very interesting. In particular, toward the end of the dive, when we were very close to the pinnacles, you could look up and see the water breaking at the top of the rocks. I found that very interesting. I did wonder about the safety involved in diving that close to the pinnacles. And what I mean is, if you had to make an emergency ascent, it was quite possible you would be washed into the jagged rocks. I would think at that point, if the seas were pushing you into the rocks, it'd be very difficult for the inflatable skiff to get close enough to make a rescue. This would mean putting another person in the water to do the rescue and to try and pull the person away from the rocks. Not something I needed to dwell on during the dive, but certainly something that crossed my mind. Although a hazard in my opinion, it does provide quite a beautiful backdrop for these dives. This was my first time visiting the British Virgin Islands, and I guess the terrain was quite different than what I had anticipated. I hadn't done a lot of research, but I expected more sandy bottoms and gently sloping islands. However, it seemed like most of the islands just jut out of the water, and there are a lot of these rock formations just popping up out of the water. I was also surprised that there were mooring balls for almost every dive site, and at how well the mooring balls appeared to have been maintained. That's good news for many reasons, but most importantly, it protects the coral from folks dropping anchors over and over. In addition to my memory, notes, and photographs, when I'm drawing diagrams of the dive sites and providing an overview, I'm also using the Guide to Diving and Snorkeling the British Virgin Islands 2nd edition book. The book is available on Amazon, and I found it to be a great resource. I actually saw the crew on the boat using the book to reference for their own dive briefings and to select dive sites. To circle back on the geography, the Virgin Islands archipelago is located in the Lesser Antilles. It's between the Caribbean Sea and the North Atlantic Ocean. The British Virgin Islands are in the easternmost part of this island chain. Most of the islands here were formed by volcanic activity and as a result are steep and hilly. Again, not what I had expected, but I didn't do a lot of research before coming here. This trip was kind of last minute for me in terms of planning. I had originally planned to be in Grand Cayman at this time, but the boat I was supposed to be on was not ready. So with a bit of last minute juggling, I ended up here in the British Virgin Islands. The British Virgin Islands were on my list already anyway. I knew I wanted to come here and dive at some point. I just thought it would be maybe a year or two, but anyway, very happy to be here and happy to be diving. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment.